Next week, on March 9th, the annual Walt Disney Company shareholder meeting will take place. Gee, I wonder what might come up. Seriousness, let's discuss how these annual shareholder meetings works because I've seen a few different comments and things like this, and I want to put everything in perspective for everybody so they know how these things typically go down. So usually these things are prepared statements. They are something to where Bob Iger, in this case, Bob Iger and Bob Chapek are going to be pretty much the only two people talking, with the exception of their general counsel and executive secretary, who gets the Robert's Rules of Order stuff out of the way in the first part of the meeting for the first few minutes, and then they move on into here's what's going on and here's what's coming up in the next year. Obviously, the 800-pound gorilla in the room for this shareholder meeting is likely going to be all of the lockdowns that occurred in the past 12 months, the effect that they've had on, obviously, park revenues for Disney, which has been tremendous, and studio productions, things like that. And then Iger and Chapek's guidance on where they think moving forward that the shareholders can expect to see the changes coming as things kind of get back to quote-unquote normal, where they expect to see revenues go. The cool thing with Disney shareholder meetings is that, unlike 99% of the publicly traded companies out there, usually those shareholder meetings contain information that a lot of people want to hear about. They will typically talk about things that are coming up in terms of projects like changes to the parks, additions of new rides and attractions. And in the case of the studio side, they'll talk about new movies that might be coming out for Marvel or for Pixar or for Lucasfilm. And of course, that's going to be the interesting part. Now, I don't expect, as I've heard some people talk about, I do not expect anybody on that call. It is not Disney style. While some companies out there, when they do annual shareholder meetings or investment calls, will sometimes have various division heads from their companies on that call, Disney is not one of those. Again, so while it's not unprecedented in the industry, it would be a little out of character for Disney. Now, where we could see something come up in terms of Lucasfilm, which is where this is all going, would be in the question and answer session. Question and answer sessions after the prepared statements of the annual shareholder meeting have concluded do sometimes tend to get a little fun and funny and spicy in some cases. Disney is not immune to that. Now, I will say that if questions do come up in the Q&A after the prepared statement has concluded next week, it's not going to come from the major institutional investors, the guys like Vanguard and BlackRock, who combined own about 15 to 20% of outstanding Disney shares. They are the biggest, most potent shareholders of Disney there is. So if you have a 401k, you have Vanguard and BlackRock mutual funds in there, you've got Disney shares. They represent you. So those conversations, however, from guys like Vanguard and BlackRock, who have hotlines to people like Iger and Chapek, plus the other companies that they own in their mutual funds and portfolios where they represent your money, they have hotlines to folks like that. So conversations about what we've been talking about the last few weeks with Lucasfilm, Kathy Kennedy, and Gina Carano, a lot of those conversations are going to happen privately. They're not going to happen in the public eye or the public ear of an annual shareholder meeting. So don't expect to see that from the big dogs. I would be very, very surprised at that. But you may see some other shareholders on that call that like to speak up, that may ask questions about that. I'm going to be more interested in listening to what Disney is not saying, just as much as they are, or at least maybe more than they are, than what they are saying. Remember, Kennedy's contract, by everything we know, comes up later this year in October. Is it possible that they announce, hey, we will have a new head of Lucasfilm come October this year? They may announce that at the annual shareholders meeting. That is possible. Although, however, I think it's rather unlikely at this point, as it's still a little early on. And I think Disney is still wrestling with everything that's been happening, although it would be very welcome news, especially to the fans out there, that I think would reinvigorate some sales for them. And I'm sure that has been discussed, especially after we had comments from Iger within the last year that he felt like, you know what, going forward, Disney is going to be, in his words, a for-profit company. Subtext being, we can't put political messaging and other things first. We have to, again, paraphrasing and a lot of subtext, we need to make good products. We need to make good movies. We need to make the things that people want. And that means, based on what he was talking about, getting politics out of Star Wars. So hopefully that is what it will be. I don't think Disney is going to go completely unwoke, but I do think that they are going to, hopefully, if the investors get their way, hopefully they are going to rock back considerably on the finger wagging and the straight up antagonizing of fans. So from Lucasfilm specifically. So we'll see what happens. Stay tuned. I'm going to try to cover that next week once the news comes out after the investor meeting or after the annual shareholder meeting next week, and we're going to discuss it. Subscribe, like the video, make a comment below. Let us know what you think about this. Let us know what you would, think you might hear at the shareholder meeting next week. Be curious to see what happens. Take care.